we're stepping right behind the curtain of the hiring process to uncover something truly fascinating. We're going to look at how employers actually measure real workplace risk before they ever even make a job offer. We're decoding a tool called the Integrity First Assessment. And whether you're an employer trying to build a safer team, or honestly just someone curious about the hidden psychology of job applications, we're going to see exactly how this tool separates those perfectly polished interview answers from the real, unfiltered human behaviors that actually show up on the job. You're applying for a job. You want to make the absolute best impression possible, right? So why in the world would you ever check a box that openly admits you've taken company property, or that you drink on the job, or that you actually think it's perfectly fine to threaten a coworker? It seems completely irrational. There's no way anyone does that, right? But it actually happens all the time. And the reason why is absolutely mind-blowing. So, part 1, the big hiring mystery. The core premise here is that the Integrity First test, it isn't about trick questions at all. It's actually incredibly direct. It measures 4 very specific metrics: responsibility, theft risk, drug and alcohol risk, and hostility risk. You see, these aren't abstract, fuzzy personality traits. An employer isn't trying to guess if you're a quote-unquote good fit. They are measuring genuine, concrete workplace risks to figure out if a candidate can be trusted to answer honestly and behave responsibly in the real world. Catching the perfect candidate. You know, before we figure out why people confess to the bad stuff, we really need to look at the people who pretend to be entirely flawless. Just consider statements like, "I have never told a lie," or "I always keep every promise." Denying basic human behavior like that, it's actually a major red flag. Because real people make mistakes. Real people occasionally get frustrated, or maybe stretch the truth a little, or miss a deadline. Wanting to make a good impression is totally normal, for sure. But presenting yourself as too good to be true by denying normal human limits, well, that looks a lot like answer management, not a real strength. The psychology of justification. This brings us back to our core mystery. Why do people actually admit to fireable offenses? Well, the answer lies in cognitive dissonance, which is really the philosophical anchor of this entire explainer. Cognitive dissonance is that mental tension people feel when their actions conflict with how they see themselves. Most people inherently want to believe they're good, right? Honest, fair, responsible. But when their actions don't match up with that pristine self-image, their brain desperately has to resolve that extreme mental discomfort. Imagine having 2 completely conflicting truths bouncing around in your head. On one side, I am an honest person. On the other side, I took something from my employer. Those 2 thoughts, they cannot exist peacefully in the human brain. So to reduce the tension, candidates just change the story. They tell themselves, "Oh, I was just borrowing it," or, "The company wastes way more than that anyway," or even, "They owed me." They completely change the narrative so they get to remain the hero of their own story. Admitting zero-tolerance risks. Integrity First includes very direct questions about zero-tolerance areas. We're talking theft, narcotics, marijuana, and alcohol. Let's look at how cognitive dissonance plays out here in the real world. Imagine a warehouse employee taking tools home. Their internal justification is simply, they had extras, nobody was using them. Or consider the cash register story, where a retail worker takes money from the till, fully planning to return it on payday. Their internal story is, "I'm just borrowing it." The candidate genuinely feels their explanation makes the behavior completely acceptable. But the employer's reality? It's black and white. Taking company property without permission is outright theft. Hidden workplace hostility. So the hostility scale measures how a candidate responds to anger, disrespect, provocation, and just general interpersonal friction. And the scoring mechanics here are incredibly simple. A score of 1, that's the highest risk because the candidate is actively endorsing threats, insults, or even physical force. A score of 4 is the lowest risk because they firmly reject those behaviors. Basically, endorsing hostile behavior lowers your score. Look, getting annoyed at work is universal. We've all been there. But believing intimidation is an acceptable response, that is a massive red flag. Hostility really comes down to 3 psychological components. Step 1 is threat perception. This is where high-risk candidates misinterpret completely normal workplace feedback or minor friction as a direct personal attack. Step 2 is impulse control. Even if they intellectually know aggression is wrong, they just lack the ability to stop themselves when they're under pressure. And step 3, actually this is the biggest one, is justification. They ultimately blame others for their own outbursts. They don't say, "I lost control." They say, "They made me do it." Seeing beyond the interview and see how this all builds together. We all know that in an interview, everyone is polite, they're prepared, and they know exactly what the employer wants to hear. But here is how these testing pieces fit together into a truly cohesive risk management strategy. The faking scale? It protects the quality of the assessment itself, identifying when someone is just feeding you the answers they think you want. The zero tolerance questions protect the business from immediate, physical risks like theft and impairment. And the hostility scale protects the long-term team culture and the psychological safety of your staff. Working together, they reveal the inner rules candidates actually live by, peering way, way beyond those polished interview answers. Are you measuring what candidates say they value or what they are willing to justify? I mean, almost everyone will sit there and tell you they value honesty and safety, but the real risk, it doesn't live in what we say we value. It lives in the stories we tell ourselves to justify our bad behavior. Understanding that difference is the ultimate key to uncovering the true psychology behind your hiring process.